Today we're going to be discussing the sidechain feature found on many compressors. Sidechaining is when you use the level of a second signal to determine how much compression is placed on the track that has the compressor on it. The purpose of this, when used for cleaning up in engineering, would be to maybe reduce the level of the signal every time something in a similar frequency range happens. In our example today, the bass line is going to get quieter every time that we have a bass drum happen. Another use of this may be if the vocal is the most important thing in the track that you want to stand out, well then every time that the vocal happens, it may make the keyboard pads or the guitars just slightly quieter. Not something that the listener would detect, but it will help just clear the way a little bit so that the instrument that you want to stand out can take center stage. It's also used creatively by many house producers to maybe give that pumping effect to pads or chords. And it also can be used with gating. You can also have a sidechain feature found on many gates. Okay, so let's begin by listening to the beat that we're going to be working with today. As we hear, the bass line is very constant. It never goes away. There's not a lot of space there. So what we want to accomplish is that every time we have a bass drum, the bass line is just going to get a little bit quieter, making room for the bass drum in the track. Okay, so this is just some engineering to clean house a little bit. Okay, so we want the compressor to be on the bass track. Okay, this is the top track here. All right, now normally what's happening is the level of the bass obviously is affecting how much compression we have. Okay, what we want to do is send our bass drum, option click to bring it to 0, to a bus. Okay, we're sending our bass drum to bus 1. Now on our compressor, we're setting our key input to be bus 1. And when we go over to the sidechain section, we see the little key here, and we click on that. And now, every time that we have a bass drum, we see the reduction following the bass drum pattern. Now this may be a little extreme, having a 12 decibel reduction every time that we have a bass drum happen, but you're just going to have to adjust this to your own liking. Now it's very subtle, but it's going to make a very big difference in your mix downs if you apply this to the bass drum and to the bass track. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is you may want to make your bus, your send pre-fader. That way you can listen to the effect that it has on the bass track without having to hear the bass drum. Because if I didn't do that, every time that I mute this, basically the compression goes away. But by making it pre-fader, the compressor is still working. And we're hearing how dramatic the difference is. All right, let's give this a shot with something that's a little bit more extreme. All right, I'm going to bring up some pads here. All right, let's give those a listen, see what this sounds like. All right, just a basic pad patch there that's kind of constant. We're going to put another compressor on. All right, and we're going to do the same thing. The key input is bus 1. The sidechain is now activated. And what should happen is every time the bass drum happens, it should duck the pads. Let's make it really extreme. So what's happening is we're adopting the rhythm of the bass drum into the envelope of the pads. I know you've heard this effect before, and this is exactly how you pull it off.